I was working late at the office, my blood sugar dropping dangerously low, when my fiancée's young assistant offered me some peanuts to snack on. Unfortunately, I'm allergic to peanuts. Within minutes, I broke out in hives and started having difficulty breathing. I collapsed on the floor, begging my fiancée to take me to the hospital. The assistant's eyes welled up with tears. I didn't know Mr. Goddard was allergic to peanuts. I was only trying to help. My fiancée immediately shielded him behind her, glaring at me furiously. Stop pretending. You just can't stand me being nice to Crispin. A man's jealousy is truly pathetic. Even my childhood friend berated me for being manipulative, shoving a handful of peanuts into my mouth. You've never been allergic to peanuts before. Crispin is so kind-hearted and you're targeting him. How despicable. With that, they dragged the shocked assistant away to book the presidential suite at a hotel. I suffocated to death on the spot. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on that night I worked overtime. Ding! Story Shots reminds you to click the subscribe button at the bottom right corner to read the full novel. A figure paced back and forth in front of the desk. Oh dear, Barnaby. Are you having a hypoglycemic episode? Here, have this chocolate quickly, Crispin Haddington said, his doe-like eyes wide with concern as he held out a chocolate to me. Meeting his expression of extreme worry, I felt a chill run down my spine. The suffocating pain from my past life surged through my body. Suddenly, Crispin's lips quivered, and his eyes welled up with tears. He dropped to his knees in front of me. I've overstepped. Of course, you wouldn't want anything from someone like me. You're Miss Jennings' fiancé, used to the finer things in life, he whimpered. I'm so sorry. Please don't be angry. Please don't hit me. His exaggerated display of fear and submission made my blood boil. In my previous life, when I nearly collapsed at my desk, Crispin had approached me with seeming kindness, offering me chocolate. I was deeply touched by his apparent thoughtfulness. Thank you, I had smiled gratefully, tearing open the wrapper and popping the treat into my mouth. But soon after, I broke out in a severe rash, itching so badly I wanted to tear my skin off. Then I started coughing uncontrollably and collapsed to the floor, completely drained of strength. I desperately clutched at Crispin's trouser leg. Did you give me peanuts? Crispin blinked innocently, feigning confusion. Peanuts are nuts too, aren't they? I didn't lie to you, Barnaby. But in his eyes, I saw only triumph. At that moment, I knew he had done it deliberately. I wanted to throttle him, but my throat was swelling, making it harder and harder to breathe. The nightmarish memory engulfed me. I snapped back to the present, glaring at Crispin kneeling before me. Crispin Haddington, on your first day here, I told you I was allergic to peanuts, I growled. And yet you're pretending not to know? You bastard, trying the same trick again? Furious, I lashed out, kicking him hard. He flew backwards, crashing into the leg of a nearby desk. A lump immediately formed on his head. Cradling his injury, he curled up on the floor, looking up at me in disbelief. B. Barnaby, you kicked me? What did I do wrong? I was only trying to help. He whimpered, tears of feigned innocence in his eyes, as if I were some kind of bully. He began to wail loudly. I know I'm no match for you, but just because you have Miss Jennings backing you doesn't mean you can abuse me. His commotion drew the attention of our colleagues who were working late. They all turned to stare, their eyes full of reproach as they looked at me. Whispers began to circulate. He's so arrogant just because he's Miss Jennings' fiancé. Nothing but a gold digger, really? Making the new guy kneel and using violence? Is there no justice anymore? Their reactions infuriated me. Where was all this righteous indignation when I was killed in my past life? Crispin huddled into a trembling ball. I really didn't know you were allergic to peanuts, Barnaby, he insisted, still trying to play innocent. I was tempted to slap him again, when suddenly a sharp female voice rang out behind me. Barnaby Goddard, how dare you hit Crispin? Rushing forward in her high heels, Rowena Jennings pulled the distressed Crispin Haddington into her arms. Crispin clung to her, sobbing uncontrollably until he was hiccuping. I just saw Barnaby working late and wanted to give him some chocolates," he wailed. "I know, ever since I became Ms. Jennings' assistant, Barnaby's had it in for me. Maybe I should leave. Only if I'm gone will Barnaby be happy. Otherwise, every day will be miserable for me." What a way to twist the truth. Hearing this, Rowena felt even more protective, her eyes reddening. "You're not going anywhere. As long as I'm here, Barnaby Goddard won't dare bully you." Then, she turned to me, gritting her teeth in anger. "I've spoiled you rotten, turning you into a useless bully who can only pick on the weak." "I'm useless? I'm a bully?" Her face, contorted with rage under the lights, suddenly seemed so unfamiliar. For the sake of her performance as regional manager, to fast-track her promotion to head office, I've worked day and night on proposals for her. Several times I've pushed myself to the point of stomach cramps, heart palpitations, dizziness, and cold sweats, even collapsing at my desk, only to wake up the next day and keep working. How many important projects have I secured for her? She's forgotten it all. A few accusations from the man in her arms, and she's ready to throw mud at me. The ridiculous accusations from the person I loved most made me feel numb with anger. A wave of nausea rose uncontrollably in my stomach. I nearly vomited. Yes, in my past life she protected Crispin just like this. When I told her Crispin had given me peanuts and begged her to take me to hospital, Crispin burst into tears as if he'd suffered some great injustice. But I saw Barnaby drinking a peanut milkshake just the other day. "Barnaby, what have you got against me? Why are you trying to frame me?" At that, not only did Rowena berate me for being jealous and dramatic. Even Winifred Lancaster, my childhood friend who'd come to pick up Crispin after work, upon seeing this scene, she forcefully shoved handfuls of peanuts into my mouth. As I suffocated, my eyes bulging, in my last moments before losing consciousness, I saw my fiancée and childhood friend, each holding one of Crispin's hands. Rowena gazed at her little assistant with deep affection. "Crispin, you've worked so late. Let me book you the presidential suite tonight to make it up to you." Winifred turned back to me with cold mockery. "Barnaby Goddard, you reap what you sow. Even if you really die from an allergic reaction, it's just karma for bullying Crispin." My colleagues looked on coldly, ignoring my pleading hands. "That's what he gets for upsetting Ms. Jennings' favorite," they said. "I heard Mr. Haddington's true identity is actually," they whispered among themselves. "No wonder Ms. Jennings values him so much, and even Ms. Lancaster is so attentive. Mr. Haddington's noble bearing shines through even as a lowly employee. Barnaby Goddard is such an idiot. He deserves it for messing with someone he shouldn't have." They closed the doors and windows, taking the budget Rowena had specially approved, happily heading off for a team dinner. I lay alone and helpless on the cold floor, until I became a stiff corpse. As these memories flooded back, I felt the blood drain from my body. I yanked open the drawer, flinging the mountain of medications and hospital records in Rowena's face. "Is this what you call spoiling me?" I slammed the pile of contracts I'd negotiated onto the desk in front of her. "Is this what you mean by me being useless?" A flicker of guilt crossed her face. I then pointed at Crispin, still playing innocent in her arms. "Me bullying him? Which eye of yours saw that? After suffering so much, I couldn't take it anymore." I grabbed Crispin and dragged him towards the door. "Let go of me. Where are you taking me?" I shouted. Blocked by the glass at the main entrance, I grabbed his hair and slammed his face against the facial recognition clock-in device. With 2 lifetimes of hatred fueling my strength, I used considerable force. The device shattered instantly. As the alarm blared, "Ah!" a trickle of blood ran down Crispin Haddington's forehead. Rowena Jennings snapped back to her senses and rushed over, consumed by fury. "Barnaby Goddard, have you gone mad? I order you to release Crispin at once." I gritted my teeth and smiled. "Didn't you say I was bullying him? How could I possibly disappoint you?" Rowena was livid. She slapped me hard across the face. Her long nails left deep, bloody scratches. The stinging pain left me dazed on the spot. Once again, she unhesitatingly hurt me for the sake of someone else. Taking advantage of my shock, she snatched the sobbing Crispin back into her arms. Crispin touched his forehead, which had only a small cut, but looked pale with fright. It hurts so much. Am I going to be disfigured? If only I hadn't been so stubborn. I insisted on coming to learn at the branch office, even though my sister was against it. It's all my fault for being willful. In an instant, the color drained from Rowena's face. There had long been rumors that the Haddington Group CEO's brother had secretly entered one of the branch offices. Now Crispin had admitted it himself. Rowena pointed at me, her eyes blazing red as she ordered the security guards who had just arrived. Arrest him. Make him kneel down and apologize to Crispin. Despite my struggles, the guards quickly pinned my arms behind my back and tied me up. Rowena sent Crispin to the hospital, and I was also brought there, bound tightly. Quick, call all the specialists. We must ensure that Crispin doesn't have even the slightest scar. She demanded urgently, as if Crispin had lost an arm or a leg. A group of specialists rushed into the ward, and only then did Rowena breathe a sigh of relief. She then turned her cold gaze towards me. Do you have any idea what you've done? Our company has worked so hard to achieve our current performance. Are you trying to ruin everything? I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. You've really lost all sense of right and wrong for Crispin's sake. Rowena shook her head. Barnaby, you're truly rotten to the core. She clenched her fists and ordered the security guards. Force him down. Don't let him up until he's kowtowed to Crispin 100 times. Crispin put on an act, clutching at Rowena's skirt and sobbing. It's all right, Rowena. It's all my fault. If I hadn't accidentally given Barney those peanuts, he wouldn't have taken his frustration out on me and hurt me. It's just because Barney loves you too much. Please don't break up because of me. Ha, what a little snake. Making it sound like I'm some kind of possessive, violent brute. Rowena's face darkened. Crispin is still pleading for you, and look at how vicious you are. I don't think we need to get married anymore. I looked at her unfeeling face, realizing that all our passionate moments under the moonlight were nothing but fleeting illusions. I couldn't help but hold back tears as I shouted, Fine. Let's not get married then. From today onwards, we have no relationship whatsoever. You. Rowena was momentarily stunned, as if she hadn't expected me to agree so readily. At this moment, the strange gazes of the medical staff in the room all turned towards me. With Crispin injured, everyone showed him more pity and sympathy. Yet no one noticed the fresh blood flowing from my face down my neck, staining my white shirt red, as the medicine was applied to Crispin's head. He let out a sharp cry of pain. Rowena snapped back to attention and said, I'm so disappointed in you. What are you all waiting for? Hold him down and make him apologize and kowtow to Crispin. Never. I'd rather die than kowtow to him. I shouted. One of the guards kicked me hard in the knee, causing my joint to buckle and forcing me to kneel involuntarily. Rowena, how could you let me suffer such humiliation and lose my dignity? At that moment, a figure radiating an intense aura of displeasure walked into the room. When Winifred Lancaster heard that Crispin Haddington was injured, she rushed to the hospital immediately. Seeing a group of medical staff treating his forehead, she tightly grasped Crispin's hand. Her voice choked with concern. Crispin, who bullied you? Tell me. I'll sort them out for you. Crispin's body shook violently, unable to utter a word. His eyes, brimming with tears, looked towards me in terror. Winifred instantly understood something and approached me step by step, her gaze icy cold. I challenged her. Winifred, what are you doing? We grew up together. Do you trust him over me? Her eyes flickered, and though there was a hint of reluctance, she didn't hesitate. Crispin has lost so much blood. You'll pay him back 10 or 100-fold. I'm doing this for your own good. You don't want to be expelled from the Haddington Group, do you? Couldn't help but sneer. Expelled from the Haddington Group? What power do you have to be so high and mighty? Winifred frowned impatiently. Or is someone trying to protect you? The fiancé? Rowena Jennings, hearing this, walked up to me with a dark expression. Barnaby, why don't you just kneel down and apologize to Crispin? It's only 100 times. It won't kill you. She grabbed my hair as she spoke. The doctor finished treating Crispin's wound, and he covered his eyes, calling out, Rowena, Winifred, I don't want to see Barnaby bleed either. 100 is too many. How about just 50? All right? He seemed to be pleading for me, yet his whole body trembled with anticipation. I struggled in Rowena's grip. Crispin Haddington, I'll make you pay for this. Thud, thud. Rowena mercilessly slammed my head against the floor repeatedly. Soon, blood appeared on the ground. Dizzy and disoriented, I gritted my teeth and cursed. Rowena Jennings, you're aiding and abetting evil. You'll regret this. Crispin crawled out of bed, his eyes filled with angry tears. I can take what you say about me, but Rowena is only trying to help you mend your ways, and you're still ungrateful for her kindness. Barnaby, where's your conscience? Is it because Rowena and Winifred are nice to me, and I'm the brother of the Haddington Group's chairman? Hearing this, Winifred's eyes widened. What? Crispin, you're really the chairman's brother. Crispin raised his foot towards me, shaking his head with apparent reluctance. I'm not doing this for myself. I'm teaching you a lesson for Rowena and Winifred. I hope you can become a better person. A fierce light flashed in his eyes as he kicked at me, clearly retaliating for when I had kicked him earlier. Using all my strength, I dodged, and he ended up kicking Rowena in the chest. Instantly, Rowena crashed into a cabinet, coughing violently. A deep red footprint appeared on her pale chest, visible through her low-cut top. It was clear how hard Crispin had kicked. Ah, you dare to dodge. Crispin was fuming. I've said it before, I had no idea you were allergic to peanuts. No good deed goes unpunished. I didn't know what he was planning next, but I knew if I didn't escape, he would surely destroy me. Desperately breaking free from the ropes on my body, I got up and tried to run. Rowena stood up and shouted an order. Catch him! Just as I was about to dart out of the hospital room, the security guard's large hands once again restrained me like vices. I was so close to escaping and calling for help. Winifred somehow produced a handful of peanuts, her voice as cold as ice as she approached step by step. How come I didn't know you were allergic to peanuts? Barnaby Goddard, even acting has its limits. You've gone to such lengths to hurt Crispin. I won't forgive you today. I suddenly realized what she was planning to do. This was how she had killed me in my previous life. No, please, Winifred, spare me. I'll die. But Winifred ignored my pleas. Rowena also gathered around. This is all your own doing. You can't blame us. Crispin put his arm around Rowena's waist, biting his lip innocently. To prove your innocence, Barnaby, just eat them. Otherwise, won't I become the bad guy in your words, trying to harm you? Doesn't my reputation matter? These words made the two women sympathize with him again. Then, Rowena coldly ordered the security guard to pry open my teeth. Crispin has suffered so much hurt and injury from you. What's eating a few peanuts going to do to you? As Winifred's peanuts loomed larger in my vision, the fear of death struck me again. Cold sweat poured out all over my body. Who would save me? Suddenly, a figure rushed in from the doorway, panting and shouting. Miss Farley heard her brother was beaten and hospitalized. She's here to pick him up. She also said she'd make whoever hurt her brother pay dearly. Upon hearing their subordinates' words, Rowena Jennings and Winifred Lancaster froze, their expressions turning anxious. Peanut fell into my mouth, and I quickly spat it out. Rowena's face showed panic. Angering Miss Farley is no joke. Winifred habitually bit her nails when nervous. Indeed, previously, someone called Miss Farley's brother a bastard, and the next day their company vanished. Though Miss Farley's brother was only found last year, she dotes on him so much that she's reluctant to let him appear in public, fearing he might be hurt by rumors. Rowena glared at me viciously. Barnaby Goddard, you've bullied Crispin like this. How selfish. I've devoted myself to the Haddington Group, finally achieving all this. It's gone now, You're going to get us all killed. If Miss Farley blames us, don't expect me to." Seeing her ferocious expression, I felt a chill in my heart. At least half of her success today was due to my efforts. Yet for her own advancement, she was so quick to throw me under the bus, to cut ties with me. Though I had long since become disillusioned with her, I still felt my heart being torn apart. Years ago, we met when we were nobodies. She told me of her grand ambitions, dreaming of reaching the highest echelons of the Haddington Group, climbing to the pinnacle of success. She wanted a happy little family, 2-3 of them, prosperous and content. So I gave up offers from Fortune 500 companies, resolutely staying by her side. I became a silent tool, willing to sacrifice everything just so she could achieve what she wanted. Even my peanut allergy was due to overworking without rest. It caused my once healthy body to break down, leaving me with a weakened immune system, developing allergies to peanuts and many other things. Now I realize, in her vision of a happy future, there was no place for me. Ha 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 ha. I laughed uncontrollably. I don't want her anymore either. I want them all to face retribution. Winifred frowned in disgust. What are you laughing at? Laughing at the ridiculous, at my own blindness, and at yours. Winifred raised her hand, leaving an angry red mark on the one undamaged half of my face. If you remain so obstinate, even I won't be able to protect you. I was going to plead for you, but seeing how despicable and reckless you are just makes me sick. When Miss Farley arrives, you'd better fall on your sword and confess. Noticing the blood all over my face and my maniacal laughter, Rowena felt a twinge of sympathy. But thinking of the consequences I might cause, her pity vanished into thin air. Frowning in disgust, she turned to Crispin Haddington, who was inexplicably sweating, and said softly, "Crispin, who would have thought Miss Farley cared so much about you? She already knows you've been bullied in such a short time. But you've seen how hard our entire company has worked. We've truly given our all for the Haddington Group, haven't we?" Crispin smiled awkwardly. "Yes, indeed." Rowena held Crispin's hand, curving her lips ingratiatingly. "When Miss Farley arrives, you should give Barnaby a good telling off in front of her. Don't hold back. The way Barnaby bullied you today, I absolutely won't tolerate it. As for the others in the company, they're all innocent." Winifred stuffed a handful of peanuts into his palm. "Just force these peanuts into Barnaby's mouth." Crispin hesitated. "Oh, but I don't like using violence. And I don't like throwing my weight around just because my sister is the CEO of the Haddington Group. Rowena, Winifred, let's leave first. Otherwise, if my sister sees me like this when she arrives, she'll surely punish Barney even more severely. I can't bear that." With that, Crispin tried to leave. Watching his retreating figure, Rowena and Winifred felt even more touched by Crispin's kindness. Rowena grabbed Crispin's wrist tightly. "No, we must give you an explanation today. It's my duty as the branch manager." Winifred also blocked him, roughly dragging me over. "That's right, as the group's executive assistant. How can I let Miss Farley's beloved brother suffer such serious slander and persecution? We must uphold justice for you." At her signal, the security guard suddenly jabbed his stun baton hard into the back of my head. With a crackling electric sound, my vision went dark. In my daze, it felt like someone pried open my mouth. Winifred grabbed Crispin's hand, forcibly stuffing a large handful of peanuts into my mouth. "How cruel you all are." Tears of despair slid down my cheeks. "Who dared to severely persecute my brother?" A sharp yet melodious female voice, along with rapid footsteps, came from outside the door. I woke up again to find myself lying in darkness. Had I died and been reborn once more? The pain of betrayal by those I loved most dearly made my whole body convulse involuntarily. My hands unconsciously gripped the bedsheets, knuckles turning ghostly white. I gasped for air like a drowning man, sweat drenching my forehead. Unexpectedly, I heard my sister's familiar mocking voice nearby. "Oh my, is this all you're capable of? Talking about working your way up from the bottom, making something of yourself without relying on my connections. And what's the result? You've been reduced to this state by a few insignificant insects. My eyes suddenly flew open, and in the next moment, the lights in the room came on. Before me stood an attractive woman in her 30s with a mature air. I found myself lying in a luxurious, pristine hospital bed. My sister stood there fuming, hands on her hips as she glared down at me imperiously. She continued, "Look at the state you're in now, nearly losing your life. You brought this on yourself." But her eyes were red and puffy, clearly from recent crying. Only then did I realize I had been saved. "Sis." I opened my mouth, but my voice came out unrecognizably hoarse. I tried to reach out to hug her, only to find an 4 drip attached to my right hand. "Don't move. Lie still. The doctors only just finished pumping your stomach. They fed you so many peanuts. If I'd been even a few minutes later, I might never have seen you again." As she spoke, tears of anguish and lingering fear welled up in my sister's eyes once more. My nose stung with emotion. In front of someone who truly cared for me, all my forced pretenses crumbled in an instant. "I'm sorry, sis. I've made you worry so much." Gwendolyn Farley, the youngest CEO of the Haddington Group, was my own sister. We used to be a happy family of 4 when I was little. But I was kidnapped at the age of 3, and my family had been searching for me ever since. Our parents passed away far too soon, worn down by their grief and longing for me. The heavy burden of the family legacy fell entirely on my sister's shoulders when she was just 18. Not only did she take on the task of revitalizing Haddington, transforming it from an ordinary family business into a major listed corporation. All these years, she never gave up searching for me. After being abducted, I took on my adoptive father's surname, Goddard. My adoptive parents had both passed away a few years ago. It wasn't until just over a year ago, when the CEO of Haddington Group came to our branch for a meeting. Suddenly, as we passed each other in the corridor, she saw a young man with a face almost identical to our father's. Later, after a DNA test, we were finally reunited as brother and sister. My sister immediately wanted me to reclaim my heritage and take on an important role at Haddington. I shook my head and refused her offer. "I want to prove myself on my own merits, to earn everyone's respect. Besides, Rowena is my fiancée. I've sworn to her that I'll help her reach the pinnacle of success. I can't break that promise. Sis, please let me continue working anonymously at the branch office." My sister poked my forehead in exasperation. I've never met anyone so eager to make life difficult for themselves, but she indulgently allowed me to make my own choice. "Just remember, if anything happens, tell me immediately. No one is allowed to bully my little brother, Gwendolyn Farley's brother." Everyone thought Crispin Haddington was Gwendolyn Farley's legendary brother. Little did they know that Crispin Haddington was nothing but a bumbling imposter. And yet, he truly believed himself to be the Haddington heir. How ridiculous! I asked. "By the way, what about Rowena and the others?" My sister slapped the bed covers furiously. "Humph! That vicious woman and those 2 damn scoundrels, they nearly killed you. Did you think I'd let them off easy?" Seeing my sister's fierce glare, I couldn't help but shudder. Unable to contain my curiosity, I asked eagerly, "What on earth happened after I passed out? Come on, sis, tell me everything." So my sister settled back into the plush visitor's chair and began to recount the events. At the time, accompanying my sister to the hospital was also Dustin Lovelace, the deputy manager of the branch office. This deputy manager was one of the people present during the overtime incident when he saw Crispin Haddington being kicked away by me, assuming I had bullied Gwendolyn's beloved brother. To curry favor and seek credit, during a slightly tipsy dinner gathering, the others encouraged him to contact my sister. "This could be a great achievement, Mr. Lovelace. You know how much Ms. Farley dotes on her brother. Today, Goddard bullied Mr. Haddington's assistant like that. How can we just stand by and do nothing? If you inform Ms. Farley, she'll be grateful. Won't that mean more lucrative projects for us in the future? Mr. Lovelace, you're also in line for a promotion. Kicking out Rowena Jennings is within reach, hee hee. Come on, let's have a drink." Hearing this, I couldn't help but frown deeply. Bloody hell. What a bunch of ungrateful dogs. Every time these useless lot had something they couldn't handle, which one of those issues didn't I take over and clean up for them, ultimately delivering perfect results? Every time they clocked off early, I was the one staying late into the night. When the office lights dimmed, didn't I want to go home early to shower, lie down, scroll through my phone, and watch telly? Before Crispin Haddington showed up, they would at least say thank you to me. Since he arrived, everyone's attitude has done a complete 180. No matter how much I contributed, it meant nothing to these people. However, Dustin Lovelace's phone call inadvertently saved me. As soon as Gwendolyn Farley entered the hospital room, she saw me collapsed on the floor. Instantly, her face darkened with storm clouds. But the others misunderstood, thinking Gwendolyn was angry at me. Rowena Jennings kicked me in the waist. With a face full of guilt, she bowed to Gwendolyn and apologized. "I'm so sorry, Miss Farley. It's all my fault for being too lenient with my fiancé. I let him forget who he is, to the point of bullying your brother. When he wakes up, I'll make sure he takes responsibility and makes amends." Gwendolyn's gaze moved from Rowena Jennings' retracted pointed high heels to her face. "So you're Rowena Jennings? My brother often tells me that you're not only beautiful but also diligent in your work, and even more kind-hearted and generous. Today, seeing you in person." Rowena's face reddened as she looked at Crispin Haddington, who was hiding behind her, and said shyly, "I had no idea Crispin thought so highly of me. It's not really—" Smack! The sound rang out as Gwendolyn's hand left a deep, five-fingered imprint on her face. Well, you've really done it this time, Rowena Jennings. Truly worthy of being my brother's fiancée, aren't you?" My sister was burning with rage as she looked at me lying unconscious on the floor. "What have you done to him?" Winifred Lancaster rushed to answer. "Nothing much, we just fed him a few peanuts, that's all. And for these few peanuts, he actually slandered and bullied Crispin. Now he's just pretending to be unconscious." Dustin Lovelace approached, bowing and scraping. "It's good that you're here, Miss Farley. You must seek justice for Mr. Haddington." Peanuts! My sister realized something was terribly wrong. "Where are the doctors? Quick! Emergency treatment. He's severely allergic to peanuts." She ordered the terrified medical staff to rush in, lift me up, and quickly take me for emergency treatment. Dustin Lovelace hurriedly tried to flatter her. "Miss Farley is truly beautiful and kind-hearted. To care so much even for someone like Barnaby Goddard. It's truly a blessing for the Haddington group." My sister laughed, her anger barely contained. "Mr. Lovelace, you may go now. I'll speak with you tomorrow." One by one, she was dealing with them all. Though Dustin wanted to watch the drama unfold, he reluctantly left as instructed, glancing back every few steps. Inwardly, he was delighted. Rowena had been slapped, while he'd been treated kindly. Surely this was a good sign. After all, Rowena had failed to look after Mr. Goddard properly. Rowena, still reeling from the stinging slap that had sent her spinning, was bewildered. Fiancé? True, she was close to Crispin and often cared for him, but their relationship wasn't like that, was it? Winifred, seeing Rowena's discomfort, interjected with a cold laugh. "Rowena, you're truly shameless. You already have Barnaby as your fiancé, yet you're trying to play two men at once." "I am not," Rowena stammered. Winifred possessively embraced Crispin, declaring, "Crispin has accepted my confession. As of yesterday, we're officially a couple." She gazed at Crispin adoringly, but noticed his eyes darting about, avoiding everyone's gaze. Winifred assumed Crispin was worried about Gwendolyn's approval of their relationship. She turned to my sister, pleading, "Miss Farley, Crispin and I are truly in love. My feelings for him are sincere. Please give us your blessing." My sister stared at the couple, her laughter growing. Well, Ms. Lancaster, since you're so in love, I suppose you're one of those couples ready to face anything together." Winifred nodded eagerly, nestled in Crispin's arms, her face flushed with emotion. "Crispin and I are soulmates. We'll face everything together." for life. She was lost in her fantasy of becoming the future Mrs. Haddington, oblivious to the rising tension. My sister's suppressed fury and murderous glare went unnoticed. Suddenly, something clicked for Rowena. Her legs nearly gave way, and she almost collapsed to the floor. Miss Farley, how did you know Barnaby is allergic to peanuts? Her voice trembled, unable to believe the implications of her own thoughts. My sister's lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Indeed, why do you think I know that? It was then that Winifred realized Crispin hadn't uttered a word since Gwendolyn's arrival. Moreover, as she leaned against him, she could feel his teeth chattering. Shouldn't he be happy that Miss Farley was here? Shouldn't he be complaining to her about Barnaby's awful behavior? Why did he seem so reluctant to face Miss Farley? Winifred forcefully pulled Crispin from the crowd. Crispin, Miss Farley came all this way to support you. Tell her what happened. She's your sister who loves you most. She even bought an entire hill to build you a mansion. Indeed, when my sister first found me, she had purchased the most scenic hill with the best location, just to build me a mansion. From there, one could see the most dazzling night view of the entire city, as well as the resting place of our parents. The news had shocked the city, and my sister's extreme love for her brother had trended on social media for days, even as the whole world tried to uncover the identity of the Haddington Group's young master. My sister had kept me well hidden, all to help me achieve my dreams and rightfully become the second in command of the Haddington Group. Crispin was pushed in front of my sister. Ms. Farley, he stammered. Winifred smiled. Why so formal? My sister cast a haughty, contemptuous glance at Crispin. Who the bloody hell are you? How dare you impersonate Gwendolyn Farley's brother? At that moment, Rowena Jennings' mind finally cleared, and she collapsed onto the floor. She understood everything now. Crispin Haddington wasn't the young master of the Haddington Group at all. Gwendolyn Farley had come tonight to support her brother and seek justice for him. But her brother was me. Her mind felt as if it had been struck by lightning. Tears of shock and regret fell to the ground like broken strings. I was wrong, Barnaby, she cried. But I really didn't know you were allergic to peanuts. I thought you were just acting, all to bully Crispin. Winifred Lancaster watched the scene unfold before her like a farce. She slowly widened her eyes in disbelief. How is this possible? She shook Rowena's arm vigorously. Crispin is Ms. Farley's brother. What nonsense are you talking about? Rowena couldn't be bothered with her anymore. She pushed Winifred away and crawled to my sister, clinging to her ankles and apologizing profusely. Please forgive me, Miss Farley. I didn't mean it. I thought Crispin was your brother. I had no idea it was Barnaby. My sister, disgusted, kicked her away. What? Even if Barnaby wasn't my brother, does that mean you could conspire to harm him like this? My sister glared at the three of them, as well as the security guards present. You're all done for. In an instant, Rowena completely broke down. I love Barnaby. He's my fiancé. I never meant to harm him. Sister, you must believe me. Who's your sister? How revolting. My sister wasted no time in having her bodyguards call the police. They attempted murder. Arrest them all. Yes, Miss Farley. After that, my sister ignored the three of them as they cried and begged for mercy. Her only concern was my condition, and she rushed to the emergency room. Fortunately, I had only just ingested the peanuts, and thanks to the doctor's vigorous efforts to save me, I managed to escape danger. Only then did my sister cry tears of joy and relief. Ah, I sighed. In fact, Rowena and I were quite in love in previous years. Even when we didn't have much money, we still made time to travel together. On every special occasion, we would exchange gifts, full of happy rituals. Rowena even took the initiative to suggest, let's have a baby. But seeing how busy she was with the company, to the point where she barely had time to eat, I felt terribly sorry for her. Once you've successfully entered the group and we're married, then we'll have the cutest baby. I can't bear to see you suffer. But the corruption of power and money gradually made her forget her original intentions. She no longer remembered our anniversaries. She was no longer willing to travel the world with me to see its beauty. Especially after Crispin became her assistant, she often gave me the cold shoulder and would yell at me whenever she was dissatisfied. I always thought it was just because of the pressure from work and didn't pay much attention to it. Only now do I realize how stupid I was. She had changed her heart long ago. The next day, the news of Rowena Jennings and the other two being arrested hadn't yet reached the company. I left the hospital early in the morning, insisting on returning to work. After all, even if not for Rowena, the Haddington Group was still my sister's and parents' life's work. Little did I know, as soon as I stepped in, a crowd of strange looks were directed at me. Dustin Lovelace walked over, giving me a disdainful once-over. "How dare you show your face here? You're not welcome. There's no place for you anymore." A bespectacled man approached. He was the incompetent one I'd covered for the most. He chimed in, "What, hasn't Miss Farley fired you yet? If I were you, I'd slink away with my tail between my legs." Amidst the gathering malicious gazes, only my young apprentice, who had just joined the company, pushed them away in disgust. "That's enough from you lot. My mentor isn't that kind of person. Without him, who'd even look at your rubbish proposals?" He stood protectively in front of me. "If I'd been at the office last night, I'd have knocked you all flat." Surprisingly, those people started to get physical with us because of this statement. "We're helping Ms. Farley and her assistant teach you two traitors a lesson. Beat them. Beat them to a pulp. Who dares?" My sister strode in with purpose. Dustin Lovelace's face lit up at the sight of her, scurrying over like an obsequious dog, pointing at me. "Miss Farley, we were just teaching this wretch a lesson." My sister raised an eyebrow. "Well done, Dustin. You truly are the world's worst bootlicker." I couldn't help but smile. "Now, I hereby announce that everyone present is fired, of course, except for my young apprentice." It was only when Dustin and his lot were kicked out of the company doors that they realized I was actually the young master of the Haddington Group. But their wailing and begging for forgiveness was too late. I knew well that, without me diligently covering for them, these incompetents wouldn't be able to find work anywhere else. Rowena Jennings, locked up in the detention center, begged me to visit her. I refused in disgust. The love I once felt was indeed real, but it had long since warped and twisted. She had someone pass me a message, saying she had failed to recognize my true worth, that she had been deceived by Crispin Haddington. She swore she would reflect deeply on her actions and was even willing to be just a housewife, if only I would give her another chance. She nearly made me sick. In the end, I only had someone deliver a photograph to her. It was of me and the wonderful girl I had agreed to marry in the arranged match my sister had set up. We were wearing our custom-made matching rings, holding hands happily. My fiancée was leaning on my shoulder with an adorable smile, beaming like a sunflower. On the back of the photo I had written, "I'm getting married, but not to you. Stop disturbing my life. From now on, we're strangers." Soon after, with my sister's influence, all three were swiftly sentenced. Crispin Haddington, as the mastermind behind the attempt on my life, was sentenced to 2 years, since I had been successfully resuscitated. Rowena Jennings and Winifred Lancaster, for their physical assault on me, were also sentenced to 2 years each. However, Crispin was brutalized in prison, leaving him partially paralyzed. Winifred developed severe depression and attempted suicide several times. After her release, Rowena lost everything she had. She spent her days in a drunken stupor. One night, while drunk, she stumbled onto the road and was hit by a speeding lorry, leaving her in a vegetative state. As for my allergy, my sister found the best doctors for me. Through a series of desensitization treatments, I gradually recovered. I'm married now, and with my wife and our adorable baby, we're embracing a brand new life.